And good evening, everyone. This is Mike T, and welcome to another installment of the Understanding Room. As always, I have my big homie on the other end over there, Odie.
Hey guys, how y'all doing? Thank you so much for joining us once again. We're here to do our thing and hopefully y'all enjoy it.
So, um, the last few episodes that we've done, we've kind of stuck to a specific topic. And throughout the week, Odie and I have been coming up with different ideas of what we wanted to talk about. And a lot of it was about what things that are happening now, but we also wanted to throw in some of the other stuff too. But what we're going to do now is we're going to switch it up. We're going to just have open dialogue. And, with both of us knowing our history and all this stuff like that, we can throw that stuff in there as well. But we got a lot to talk about this week, everybody. So buckle up. It's going to get wild. Odie,
Yeah.
you said you wanted to start off with a story. You had a story for us?
Yeah. So before I talk about the history, I wanted to bring out what inspired me to give a little bit of our history. As some of you might have heard, the Biden administration had its first talks with China, and China, man, they came in and hit hard. The representative started with a 15-minute, just statement, just threw it all out there. And I'm going to read a part of what he said because I want you guys to hear what he said. He says the United States uses its military force and financial hegemony to carry out long arm jurisdictions and suppress other countries. It abuses so-called notions of national security to obstruct normal trade exchanges and incite countries to attack other countries. He specifically said to attack China, but he meant other countries. And dang, that is a big punch to throw. So, a lot of people were, when I was telling them about this, were saying, no, we don't, we do good. We're like the light and the beacon to the world. And I'm like, do you know our history? And so because of that, I wanted to give a little bit of the history of the United States. Now, for those of you that hopefully are seeing us outside of Texas, I was born and raised Texan. And I have the added benefit of, being half Mexican. So when I was learning Texas history, it was painted into a very nice little portrait. Oh, Mexico sent a dictator, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, to attack the Alamo. He murdered everybody in the Alamo. He slaughtered them, and they paint a picture. And then I go to Mexico, I'm in sixth grade. I go to Mexico. I'm super proud of my heritage. I'm super proud of Travis. I'm super proud of Bowie. I'm super proud of Davy Crockett. And my cousin says, that everything they told you was a lie, right? And I'm saying, wait, what? So let me explain. As we've said in past videos, we became a country 1776. Almost right after that, there was an idea that started brewing in some of the people that were important. This idea, by the way, this is something for another video at some other time, but I truly believe in 300, 400, 500 years, it's going to be considered one of the most horrible instances in humanity. But we, even today, praise it as one of the best things we could have ever done. And the idea was divine destiny. Now, it started being called divine destiny, but even that was too radical for the people at the time. So we changed the name to manifest destiny. This idea that we had to expand the country from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. So in 1803, we're going to buy the United States wants to buy New Orleans. Now, they only want to buy New Orleans. They send a representative to New Orleans, and he's been told by the government, you are allowed to spend up to $10 million on New Orleans. That's it. That's the max. So he gets to New Orleans, and Napoleon's representative, yes, Napoleon, his representative says, well, you know what? Napoleon's actually going to give you guys a really good deal. He's going to sell you the whole Louisiana territory for $15 million. And our representative says, what? Yeah, let's go. Honestly, guys, Napoleon took us for a ride. He didn't own any of that territory. What he actually sold us was a chance to colonize those territories if we could make treaties with the indigenous people or conquer them for the $15 million. $15 million. That alone, if you look at the Louisiana Purchase and everything that came out after it, the total amount that we ended up paying for it ended up being about $2 billion. But then came the worst part. Because we got such a sweet deal for the Louisiana Purchase, people started believing, like really buying into the manifest destiny. And the U.S. started pressuring Mexico to sell them the territory that was at that time Texas. Now, Mexico didn't want to sell. Mexico wasn't interested in selling. So what they did is they said, you know what? We're not interested in selling, but what we'll do is we'll invite some of your citizens, the U.S. citizens, to come to our land. We will give you, acres. I think it was like 4,000 acres per person. It was something ridiculous. And all you got to do is work the land and pay taxes. That's all you got to do. Well, guess what we did as Americans? We get there, we start working the land, and then say, no, that doesn't fly with us. We're not going to pay you taxes. You're not helping us work the land. We're working the land, so we're not going to pay you taxes. So when Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna was marching from Mexico to the Alamo, it was to deport immigrants that weren't doing what they were supposed to. Doesn't that kind of sound familiar? I mean, they weren't following the laws. What is it that the proponents always say? If they only followed the rules, they'd be in the country legally.
And they are the party of law and order.
There you go. So, by the way, the Alamo itself is kind of a lie. We were told in school everyone was slaughtered. Not one person got out of there alive. And that's completely fake. The reality is that the only ones that were slaughtered were the Anglo-Saxon Americans, the ones that were there and breaking the law. The others that were non-combatants, the women, the children, the slaves, Mexico set them free. There's more on that. I for those of you interested, I recommend you all read not the American narrative of the Alamo, but read the Mexican narrative, because and I'm not gonna go into all of that. It could be a whole episode on its own, but the Mexican narrative paints one of the biggest heroes of the Alamo as a traitor, and it's very interesting to read when you get into it. But besides the point, the Alamo happens. A couple of weeks later, Santa Anna is captured. Now, this is where I want you all to listen. I need you all to pay attention to this, because this is what's crazy. We've always been told Santa Anna was the dictator of Mexico. He did become the dictator of Mexico years later, but at that time, he was just a general. So we capture this general, the Texians, the American Texians capture this general, and they force him under duress to sign a treaty that says Texas is free. And all we're going to give you in return is your life. Of course, under duress, he signs that treaty. And even though Mexico from the beginning said, hey, he's not our president, we're a democracy, this was not something that we authorized, the United States comes in and says, hey, you know what, Texas, we'll support you if you join our union. We'll say that your treaty's valid if you join our union. And, you know, the rest is history on that one. But that's not where it ends, guys.
But hold on. Why,
go ahead.
But just to add a point to that. Now, we're talking about a lot of land. He's not just talking about Louisiana and New Orleans. He's talking about 800 something thousand square miles of land. So you're talking about space from New Orleans, like South Louisiana, all the way as far northwest as Nebraska, maybe?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a lot of land that the United States purchased.
No, they didn't.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we know. That's why the air quotes were there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no purchasing. There was a lot of lives that were lost, people that were forced out of their homes. I mean, let's just cut it down. This is the understanding room. We're going to be completely honest about it.
Yeah.
People were murdered. Their kids were taken as slaves. Their kids were murdered. Some of them were raped. I mean, they massacred half of a population, all because they purchased land from someone who wasn't even the purchaser of that land.
Not just see, and the worst part about it is that that's not even where it ends. You know, that was in the 1830s, and even after they took Texas, the U.S. wanted to buy California and the rest of the land from Mexico. President Polk starts attacking, unprovoked attacks to Mexico. He thought he actually made a speech to his cabinet saying that the war would be won in a couple of weeks and that, you know, all that land would be the United States. He attacked those lands. He, like Mike said, murdered people. Watch, this is something that I found super interesting. In May of 1846, there was a congressman that opposed the attacks on Mexico. And that congressman, some of you might recognize his name, Abraham Lincoln. And while speaking to Congress, he said, Mr. President, the unnecessary and unconstitutionally commenced a war with Mexico. The marching an army into the midst of a peaceful Mexican settlement, frightening the inhabitants away, leaving the growing crops and other property to destruction, to you may appear a perfectly amiable, peaceful, unprovoking procedure, but it does not appear so to us. He told that, Abraham Lincoln told that to President Polk. There was a congressman, I think his name was Horace Greeley. Horace Greeley once put, we can conquer and annex their territory, but what then? Who believes a score of victories over Mexico, the annexation of half her provinces, will give us more liberty or a pure morality or a more prosperous industry? Like, again, they were vilifying the Mexicans, which was a peaceful person. Because of Polk, Mexico lost 42% of its land. And what did the U.S. give Mexico in return? 15 million.
And I want to take it back for just a second. When he was talking about how Santa Anna was captured, let's talk about how he was captured. The man was taking a nap under a tree in Mexico. In Mexico. So these U.S. federal troops marched into Mexico. We'll leave that alone. Find this man taking a nap under a tree, holds him at gunpoint, and like Odie says, forces him to sign a treaty, even though he is not the representative of that country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
yeah. By the way, guys, that 15 million that they gave Mexico, it wasn't even like actual money. They gave them 15 million in debt reconciliation. For those of you that say, "Oh, illegal aliens," what if we gave Mexico back their land that we stole?
Well, if you think about it, technically, it's still their land. If you think,
we stole it.
You know, like if it wasn't for Abraham Lincoln and some of the other senators, Polk was going to send the military down in to take all of Mexico.
Yeah, they went all the way down to Mexico City.
Mexico City, exactly. They were going to take all of it, but Abraham Lincoln and some of the other senators told them, like, that's too greedy. We don't want to be seen as a country that's too greedy. I mean, we've already taken enough from them. Like you said, they already took 42% of their land, and you know that wasn't enough for them apparently. But they agreed to only take down to the Rio Grande.
Yeah,
the Rio Grande was the and like you were saying earlier, also how the attacks were going provoked. The federal troops sat down because there was a quote settlement. It was unsettled agreement that the area between the Nueces River and the Rio Grande River would be a neutral zone. A neutral zone. They would stay out of that area. Federal troops crossed over that, went down to the Rio Grande. That's where Mexico saw them, and they were like, "Hey, y'all said that y'all were going to stay out of this part. What are y'all doing here?" So they came not as a show of force, but as of like, "Why are you here?" And that's when the federal troops fired upon them because they took them as a threat.
Just to show you guys, you know, and I'm not saying in no way, shape, or form am I saying that what China's doing to Hong Kong is good. Like I you know, free Hong Kong is something that I believe in too. But just so that you understand how bad this was, General Ulysses S. Grant, one of the best generals that our nation has ever had, actually called the Mexican War one of the most unjust wars ever undertaken by a stronger nation against a weaker one.
Mm-hmm.
We, you know, some people in politics, some people think of Mexico as a third world country, as a, you know, I don't want to repeat the word, but as an S-hole country. And yet we're the reason they're like that. Had we not taken California, the gold rush would have been theirs. Had we not taken Texas, all of the farmland of Texas would have been theirs. They would probably be richer than we are right now. And yet we bully other countries that have done the same. Now, this is the end of the history lesson. I wanted to talk to you about Mexico and because I also wanted to everybody to understand one of the most hated people that every single person knows and hates is Hitler, right? Now, how many of you knew that Hitler was actually inspired by the United States? When he took power, there was a phrase that was being used. I don't know if you remember what the phrase was, Mike. I'm trying to remember, but pretty much the equivalent of the manifest destiny for Germany. And in one of his speeches, he literally said, "We are going to spread German, blood through all these countries, and the inhabitants will be treated as the Redskins.
And that's why Germany tried their best to keep the US out of World War II, and why Hitler got so mad at Japan for attacking them.
Yep, because there's no bigger bully than the US. Guys, I want you to hear that. The Holocaust, World War I and World War II, both world wars were inspired by us. That breaks my heart because I love this country. And that's not it, guys. Since then, we've actually helped and funded militaries to completely undo over 50 governments, a lot of which were democratic governments. They weren't dictators, they weren't communism, they weren't socialism, they were capitalist governments, democracies. And just because they wouldn't play ball with the US, we decided to dethrone them. The best thing that I can say about that is, I love my country. But one thing that I wish we did is that we walked the walk, not just talked the talk. I do recommend that you guys go back and read the transcript of China's speech, because they go on to talk about how we treat minorities in our country. And it's sad that a country that we consider as completely evil to its population comes back and says, well, how are you better if you treat your minorities like this? Who the hell are you to tell us what to do when you do worse? So, Mike, you want to add anything to that?
Definitely. Just going back to, how you were saying that, spreading of how we spread, military throughout all the other world. But you got to understand that's how the African slave trade started as well. Europeans going into Africa saying, hey, you want to be the biggest tribe in Africa? We'll give you these, start handing them firearms, and then going to the next tribe doing the same thing. And then when they kill each other, whoever's left over or whoever's the prisoners, we'll give you such and such. We give you more of these weapons if you give us those people that you take as captives. And it started like that. And then empires started to fall in Africa because tribes started fighting each other, because they wanted the bigger weapons. They wanted to be able to protect their tribe. And then here we go. And like you said, you can't be a country telling other countries how they should handle their population when you are doing things like they're doing in Georgia right now. They're passing laws and I'm sorry, not even legislation, it's law now. In Georgia, they passed it. They took a 2-page bill and added 98 more pages to it over in one day. And the sad part of that is it's overwhelmingly obvious how they are targeting minority voters and people who are going to primarily vote Democratic. They basically made into law all the things that Donald Trump tried to do in the election. They now made it a law that they can do that now. So the Secretary of State that stood up to Donald Trump in the last election has been removed from office, and now they're going to appoint a council of people that they are going to approve. So basically, they're essentially removing the one person that's going to keep them from doing things unfairly and putting a group of people that's going to agree with whatever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this morning when I woke up and heard, I just heard this morning that it had, I don't know exactly when it became law, but I heard that this morning. It's a sad day for sure, man. It takes us, we talked about it last week, and I'll say it again, it takes us back to the Jim Crow era. And I was having a conversation with someone today about it, and they're saying, well, why can't they show ID? No, there's no ID because these are illegals and this and that. Guys, you know, if you don't drive, if you don't have a driver's license, how many of you have a state issued ID? You can go get one, but you're going to pay money for it. And how many people can afford, or how many people have a ride to go get a state issued ID? How many people can afford to go get a state issued ID? This completely hurts minorities. That's just one of the ridiculous things that this new law puts to place. And all because of a group that's claiming without any proof that there's voter fraud. And guys, look, I look, because I want to say this, because again, the person that I was having the discussion with today said, oh, well, there was proof, but the courts just didn't let them show it. If there really was proof in this day and age, you don't need the courts. If there really was proof, they could have done the Snowden and just thrown it all online. And once they saw the populace saw that they had any proof, then they had a foot to, ground to stand on, a rock to stand on. But the fact that they didn't they didn't allow the cases to go through wasn't because the courts were rigged. Most of those judges were appointed by Trump. To quote the Boondocks, the absence of evidence isn't the evidence of absence. I wish I could get that through people's heads. If there is no evidence, then nothing happened.
I mean, I don't understand how someone can go to court 60 times and lose every single one of them because of there's no basis to what you're saying at all, and you still have the nerve to say this thing was stolen. But here's the funny part. Here's where I love karma. Okay, Dominion Voting Systems has been suing the pants off of every single person that has mentioned. Look, they said put some respect on our name, and they went after everybody. They went after Giuliani. They are going after Fox News. Fox News is on it, not just Fox News, but they're going after individual people within Fox News. They look, by the time Dominion is done, they ain't got to worry about nothing.
Look, the part that baffles me is how what's her name? I can't remember her name, but the lawyer, Trump's lawyer, that was spouting Sidney Powell, spouting that Hugo Chavez and Dominion, a dead dictator, and Dominion were doing all this. What did her lawyer say this week in court? That any rational human being would that no rational human being would assume that there was fraud.
That's basically what she said was an opinion.
Exactly. Now, I want you to listen to that, especially those of you that bought into that. This is the lawyer of Chester the Cheeto. I feel bad for Chester Cheeto calling him that, but this is his lawyer. And she and her lawyer are now saying no reasonable person would have believed there's fraud. So
essentially what she's saying is that all of those people that attacked the Capitol on January 6th were not reasonable people. They were just basically what they're saying is that these people that attacked the Capitol were just crazy to believe that what I said was true. They're just idiots. Like, why would they think that? Like, you have to be so stupid to think that. So the people that Donald Trump called to DC on January 6th, these same people, that she is now saying that there was zero fraud, zero election fraud, there was no stealing of the election, and you have to be an idiot to listen to that and to believe that anything we said was fact.
Now, to be fair, I don't think you're an idiot. Guys, the person you're following, the people that are in charge of the party that you idolize, you pray to, is saying they think you're an idiot. Why would we take that? That's like staying in a relationship when the other person tells you, oh, you know, you're pretty much worthless. Now, going back to Georgia, guys, ridiculous, man. We need to really take care of this. We need to really pay attention. We need to come together as a community, as a nation, because Georgia's just the beginning of it. The same law that was proposed in Georgia has been proposed in one way or another in over 30 states.
43 to be exact, as of today.
43 states. If these laws pass, we're back to the Jim Crow.
And the sad thing is, most of them have. That's the sad part. And here's what I'm finding. This is the question I've been asking myself all week. I don't know, to those that follow me on Twitter and those that follow me on Facebook, I have asked this question at least twice this week. So everyone knows that there have been 253 bills passed in the past week for voting. There have been 7 mass shootings in the same amount of time. And there has been only thoughts and prayers, no action. So my right to carry my firearm shall never be infringed, but my right to vote can?
You know, and the sad part is that the same party that says, you know, oh, we're the ones that are trying to help you, it's the other side that wants to keep you down, is the one that's doing this right in front of our noses. Right in front of our noses. Like you said, Mike, we're going back to the shootings. Now, guess what? While COVID was going on, there were no shootings because everybody was at home. Now that we're reopening, all these shootings are happening again. And like you said, we have a senator, or no, whatever he is, Ted Cruz, I don't even care what he is anymore, here in Texas, that the shooting happens and he comes out and calls the notion of ridiculous and stupid. What is it going to take to realize that we need those laws? And by the way, guys, you know, I own an AR-15. I own a shotgun. I own a handgun, a 1911. I own a revolver. I am a believer in the Second Amendment, but I also understand that we don't need 100 bullet magazines. We don't even need a 30 bullet magazine. And they're not telling you can't, like, most people just want to regulate that. There was I can't remember if it was, I'm thinking it was Chris Rock. I can't remember if it was Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle, one of the two. But it was an old stand-up show that they did, and I loved it because they said, we don't even need to get rid of guns. Just make bullets $5,000 each. And if we did that, there might still be shootings, but I'm pretty sure that the ones that get killed deserved it. Because I'm not going to spend $5,000 just to shoot a random person. we you know, the other thing that makes me frustrated about the situation is that most of the people that support the Second Amendment don't even know the full Second Amendment. I mean, it's only 3 lines. You would think they'd go back and read it. But what is the part that everybody always quotes as the Second Amendment?
My rights to possess firearms should not be infringed.
Yep. You know, my fire, you know, we have the rights to bear arms, the rights to bear arms. Yeah, that's the second part, actually. The first part of the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. So you got to remember, this was written in 1789. It wasn't written in a way that contemporary people will understand. So we got to dissect that. And I'm going to do that for you today. Let's dissect that. And I'm going to actually flip it. What this is saying is we're giving the people the right to bear arms because in an emergency, every citizen will be protecting the state. But in order to protect the state, we need to regulate them. So it does it right there. You know, we talked a couple of weeks ago about how certain politicians keep saying that the 14th Amendment is broken. The 14th Amendment is broken. But right here, the Second Amendment clearly says we need to regulate something. Why don't they say, oh, well, that one's broken. Let's try to fix that one.
I mean, you got to look at the actual argument here. We're talking about the right to vote versus the right to have something that kills. I mean, again, like you said, I too am an avid Second Amendment person because I carry as well, especially nowadays. Um, but you like you said, it's if you don't have regulations on things like this, that's how you get all these mass shootings. That's how you get all the well, let's honor and remember. That can all be avoided. It can. And it starts with A, parents, beat your kids. Because honestly, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Beat them. Now, with that, be reasonable. Don't be all beating them upside the head and all that. No, a spanking is worth giving. A spanking really does define a child. Because let's think about this for a second. When you want to train a horse, what do you use? A whip. You whip the horse to train it, right? I'm not saying to beat your child until that they're all bruised and all. No, not that. Those that do that, come see me and we'll talk about it, and I can give you some bruises. But other than that, we need to be able to discipline our children within reason. And the fact that whenever parents are trying to do that, you get a knock on your door. You know what I'm saying? That's when you get the kids that can go out and say what they want, do what they want, and then you turn it into, well, where were the parents? What control do the parents have these days? Because every time they discipline a child, their child gets their feelings hurt, or they don't feel like they have to do this or that, they can pick up a phone and there you go. Then you have to go through 1,842 checkboxes before you can get them back. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Steve Jobs. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And you got and it leads to this. Like I said, 7 mass shootings in 7 days in 7 states. Come on, people. What is going on? And good old Texas, and we're responsible for 2 of those 7 mass shootings. And it's ever since, like you said, Governor Abbott wants to open up the state, let people have freedom, and look at what you get. They're doing so great in Miami right now.
What did we say a couple of weeks ago? Freedom is never free.
There's always a cost.
He opened up the state because he wanted us to be free. We have these mass shootings. If you live in an area where there's been mass shootings, do you really feel free? There wasn't a mass shooting here in where I live in the Rio Grande Valley, but there was a scare. There was an active shooter at a Walmart a couple of cities over. I remember when that happened. It took a couple months. It took a good while before we felt safe going to Walmart. That's not freedom. That's not real freedom. Guys, there's a price for freedom. And the price for freedom is regulation. You know, we talk about these attacks and the one that really, the one with 10 people, you know, they still haven't released a lot. So I always go back to the one with the Asian community because they did propose a couple of new changes to try to protect Asian American communities in that state. And yeah, I like the proposals, but again, same thing that we go back to. They rushed this legislation to prevent us to vote. They rushed it. They prepared it and got it ready and passed it in less than 6 months. And the laws to protect and help Asian Americans, not till 2022.
Okay, yeah. I'm happy that they're doing something with it, but is that really enough? Like really, we can sit here and debate whether this should happen or this should happen or this should happen, but in the meantime, people are getting hurt. People are losing their life. People are being attacked, and people are afraid to leave their homes. Some aren't even safe in their homes. So what? I mean, there has to be something more that can be done about this. There has to be something besides sitting around and waiting for legislation. I mean, come on. If this happened in a predominantly rich white neighborhood, there would be laws changed today. If this happened at Mar-a-Lago, there would be laws changed today. You know, if this happened in Brentwood or any other white rich suburban area or any area like that, there would be legislation law the next day. And we all know that.
Great example is the Amber Alerts. How long did it take to, get that passed after, unfortunately, a white girl? How many Black, Hispanic, Asian children, my Native American people that have there's women that are Native American women that are disappearing and being murdered across the country, and no one talks about it? Guys, we're failing. I mean, in my opinion, it's to save face. By 2022, they're, the mentality that they have is by 2022, they're going to forget something new is going to happen. That's going to grab their attention, and we won't even have to worry about passing these laws. We need immediate reform. They were making fun of Biden for saying the Senate needed to pass these laws now. That's what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's what needs to happen. We can't continue to allow this to occur. One of the I don't know if you heard about this one, Mike, but it's funny because yesterday I was in an argument with someone about it. I feel bad because I think I made them feel bad, but it kept popping up on my Facebook today. Biden administration supports Supreme Court hearing that will allow police to go into your house and take your guns without a warrant. Like, they make the title sound so negative. And I hadn't heard about it, so I went in and read about the case. And it turns out it's a guy that was suicidal. They take him to the hospital. He gets the psych eval. They determine he's not fit. So the police drive him back home and say, hey, look, we're going to confiscate your guns until you feel better, and then you can get them back. So the proposal is that in case of mental health issues, does the police need a warrant to be able to go in and take your guns? We're arguing about that, but we're not going to talk about, the Asian community being afraid to walk out their door. We're not going to talk about them dying. We're not going to talk about, again, them being belittled. One of the things that they keep belittling about, I keep hearing this, and it's so frustrating because they were adult. They were prostitutes anyways. Well, number one, only one of the 3 massage parlors, they did find that they were doing prostitution. Only one of the 3. But number 2, what the hell does it matter? They're still people. I don't hate on you. You get your money however you can get your money. I'm never gonna, look down at somebody for trying to support their family with whatever they can to support their family. And no one deserves, because, if you're telling me who deserves to get killed, prostitutes aren't going to be the first ones.
True. And it goes back to, like we said, it's all in how we're being looked at as people. When you have so many cases and examples of, things disproportionately affecting people of color and making it easier for people of non-color. And it's been a trend since before 1865, but I'm just going to say since 1865, since the end of slavery to now, nothing has really changed. Like I keep saying, they just put a pretty little bow on it, but nothing's changed. And as you can see, we're starting to repeat itself. We're going right back into, well, Black people have finally woken up to knowing that they have the right to vote, and the guy that we wanted in there can't get in there, and we can't overturn anything. So what do we do now? Something we can do. Hey, how long ago was Jim Crow? Wasn't that a long enough for people enough to forget? Let's distract them all with the internet and all this other stuff so they won't look it up. So they can distract them with stupid stuff like, hey, what celebrity's doing what? Or, hey, this person's doing this. Or, hey, this NFL player is doing that. When we are failing to, and we're failing to look at, when we're failing to look at how things that have happened once in history are starting to happen again.
And sorry that I interrupted you, Mike. The point that I was going to make is because someone brought this up, and I was like, really, that's your argument? The point that they brought up is like, well, the Democrats were the ones that started the Jim Crow laws. Look, it doesn't matter who started them. It doesn't matter who started them. It matters that we changed them. It doesn't matter that they started it then if the Republicans are doing it now. Just because they did it back then, it's okay for the Republicans to do it now too? It isn't. What matters is that we change that history, that we make it so that we have a brighter future. And the only way we're going to do that is by making sure that we pay attention to the important things. We talk about the Asian Americans. Another crisis that comes to mind is the homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Homelessness in America, especially because of the pandemic. I mean, how many 50 million people are in trouble of being evicted because of and you know what? I feel for the renters too. My sister-in-law is a renter. She has quite a few apartments, and she's been hit hard and hurt because a lot of the renters can't pay. But that's a failure of us as a government, as a country. That's not the fault of the renter in any way, shape, or form. I mean, how can we expect them to pay if our medical insurance is tied to a job? If we lose our job, we lose our medical insurance. If we lose our medical insurance, we're going to have to pay for anything that we need, any kind of medicine. I'm diabetic. It's hard to say this, but I'm the place that I work at. I've been wanting to leave this place for like 2 years now. And the reason that I'm there, the reason that I'm still there is because if I leave, my medicine is $300 a month. And anywhere that I go, it's going to take at least 90 days to become eligible for insurance. What the heck am I going to do for 90 days without my medication? Right?
I mean, it's insane to me.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and guys, watch, just to throw a figure out there. In 2019, we had approximately 600,000 homeless people in this country. In 2019, we had 600,000 people homeless in this country. You know how many vacant homes there were in 2019? 17 million. We could have given a house to each of these people.
It's sad. And it goes back to what we were talking about, opportunity. Like, you know what I mean? Like you said, like people aren't afforded the opportunities equally in this country. And it shows. And it's affecting everyone across the spectrum, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. This pandemic is really taking a toll on all of us. And the reason that we're talking about all of this is because that since the pandemic, all of this is already affecting us, and we have so much division, and it's coming from within our own government, dividing us as people. This is the time we should be coming together. This is the time we should be taking the time to try to understand and become one. Because if our government can't get it together, who else can we lean on other than each other? We should definitely take our differences, put them aside, and try to be one nation of one people trying to understand and achieve one goal. And that's unity, peace, and liberty for everyone. You got to understand there's like 10 people dead and 30 people that were hurt last week in these mass shootings. And why does it seem like all we can get from that is let's take a moment of remembrance? But they're jumping on real quick on these 253 bills they want to make laws. And then you have, you know, this this lawyer that President Biden is trying to confirm as the number 3 in the Justice Department, and they're trying to withhold her confirmation. If those who don't know who I'm talking about Vanita Gupta. She is a very well known lawyer, and for those who don't know, just a few years ago here in Texas, she came down here with a equal rights group into the small town of Tulia, Texas, where 46 people were wrongfully charged and convicted of selling dope to an undercover narc who had no prior experience, no evidence, no fingerprints, no wiretapping, no nothing. Didn't even have dope. And all of these people were convicted and sent to prison. Now, the reason I bring all of this back into our senator here in Texas, not Ted Cruz, not everybody's favorite golden boy. We're talking about Senator Cornyn, is the senator that is just leading the way, trying to block her confirmation. So, trying to figure this out, what would he have? What reasoning would this man have to keep her from being confirmed? Guess what I found out? Cornyn awarded Tom Coleman an award, Officer of the Year, for arresting falsely with no evidence, no dope, no nothing. He awarded him Officer of the Year. Until this lawyer, Vanita Gupta, comes to Texas, does an investigation, starts to see that Tom Coleman is a bold-faced liar who has prior convictions and charges himself, by the way. This is the guy that they said was going to be good enough to be their undercover narc in Tulia, Texas, by the way. Let's just get that on. So yeah, until she comes in and says, oh, no, this isn't right. All of these have nothing proving that these people were there. To even mention that a woman who was at a bank in a completely different city at a completely different time, at the same time that she said to be handing Tom Coleman the dope, was in a bank. Her name was on the signature at the bank at the time that he said that she was selling him dope. She came in and found that out and put Tom Coleman on the stand and called him out. Every single person was released and pardoned. So here we are. So here we are all of these years later. Vanita Gupta is about to be confirmed as the number 3 in the Justice Department, but Senator Cornyn has an issue with it. Now, my question is this an act of retaliation for overturning the conviction of these falsely accused people? Or is she afraid that the same work that she put into that case, she's going to turn around and put into the case that the DOJ is opening against Trump?
You read my mind. That's what I was going to say. Even if it's not about the Trump case, it doesn't even matter about that. The fact that there's no reason, there's absolutely no reason to deny her. It's just because they don't want her. And the funny thing is, let's compare the juxtaposition of it. Kavanaugh, who had sexual harassment allegations on him
And sexual assault.
and sexual assault, these same senators were trying to rush him through, push him through. There's no need for an FBI investigation. You are besmirching this good man's name. And now this woman who doesn't have any of those allegations, who has a spotless record, and who's helped free innocent people, they don't want to, sign off on it.
And not to mention, I'm glad you brought up Judge Kavanaugh, but let's not remember, what was it, last year when they appointed Amy Coney Barrett.
Oh,
And the quickest, she had zero experience at all trying any cases. She only tried, what was it, civil cases or something like that she did?
yeah.
And she's a Supreme Court justice. But this woman who has worked for the past 20 years, including freeing 46 people who were falsely arrested and charged and convicted by a man who himself was previously charged and convicted of charges of like drugs and stuff like that too. By that man who later was arrested for perjury, for lying in all of those cases that also imprisoned 46 people. Yeah, this is the guy that John Cornyn wants to be awarding Officer of the Year. And this is the same guy who wanted to vote to confirm Amy Coney Barrett and Judge Kavanaugh, but is standing up and fighting to keep out Vanita Gupta. It kind of sounds like what we were talking about last week. Women not getting the respect that they deserve. And this woman deserves her job. She does. And she's getting railroaded by a man who she previously embarrassed, let's say, 20 years ago.
Emasculated much? Oh, man.
Go fishing with that thing, Rody.
Yep.
You go fishing with that, huh? Go fishing.
We're jesting, guys. The reality is, there's no point. There's no need for this guy to try to railroad her. She's like Mike said, she's been great. If there was a real reason, then hey, go for it. But when there is no reason, we need to start making our appointed officials accountable for things like this. What was it? The one that ticked me off, and I couldn't believe he got reelected. What's his name? The guy that looks like Jar Jar Binks' boss.
Oh my God.
You know who I'm talking about, though. Yeah. McConnell. Mitch McConnell.
Yes. Brr.
Yes.
Brr. Well, the Senate's not gonna do.
He prevented President Obama right before the 2016 election from officiating the Supreme Court judge.
Mm-hmm.
When President Trump was doing it with in last year, they brought up statements that he had said in 2016 that no president should ever rush a confirmation. And he
should ever rush the confirmation of the Supreme Court. You have to be compelled to understand that they have a job to do a job.
And he said in an interview, well, I was fibbing back then, but I'm not fibbing now. He admits in an interview, oh, I lied to you all back then. I just didn't want President Obama to get that, person in. But now I'm telling you the truth. How could you trust a human being like that? How could you trust a human being like that? That would be like me saying, "Oh, Mike, I stole your money back then, but I ain't gonna steal from you now."
It's okay, Marty. I trust you now, Marty.
Guys, we need to make them accountable. This is our country. This is not their country. That's the thing we need to understand. Unfortunately, they're treating this country as an oligarchy. They're not treating it as a democracy. We need to take that back. And we do that by having these discussions, by having these peaceful, unburdened, unstressed conversations. We don't need to fight all the time, guys. We don't need to argue all the time. People say, "Oh, you just like to argue." I'm not trying to argue. I'm trying to have a discussion. The one that's arguing is you. And we don't have to do that.
Absolutely. All we have to do is just try to come together and understand. If we can do that, I mean, there's like you said, there's no reason to take anything personal just because someone doesn't agree with your stance on something. That doesn't make them an evil person. It doesn't make them, just because I believe that everyone deserves the right to vote equally without anybody saying this, and this. I think look, if we're going to do something, let's make it equal. If you want everyone to have ID when they vote, give them a chance to have ID fairly, equally, so everyone can have this ID that you want them to have when they come and vote, or whenever you want to ask them about their votes, they have ID. That's not a problem. But make it fair, make it equal. Then no one would have an issue about saying, "Oh yeah, you want me to have an ID while I vote? You can have an ID. I'll have an ID right here for you." But don't sit here and make it hard for people to get the access to having an ID and then saying you have to have an ID to vote. I mean, you're taking away their voice.
Exactly. Well, what I don't know if you remember, Mike, there was a state, I think it was Kentucky. I can't remember what state it was, that in the last election, in one of the I don't remember what they're called, the areas that held about 45% of the black population, they only had one voting poll open.
Yeah.
Or that, like, how is that fair, guys? How is that fair for them to vote? We need to make it fair, and and the way that we make it fair is by making it accessible, not by making it harder to get to. And you know what? Honestly, if you are afraid of there being corruption or of there being illegal votes, do your research. Do your research. I want you to, because I'll even give it to you. Don't trust me? Go look it up. But in the 2016 election, there were only 16 people convicted of voter fraud, and more than half of them voted Republican.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because just in this election, where President Trump was, or sorry, former President Trump,
Chester Cheeto,
he was going around claiming, "Oh, there's voter fraud here in Pennsylvania," and he was right. He was absolutely right. It just wasn't done by Democrats. There was a man who voted for his dead mother who voted for Trump. There was a guy who dressed up as a woman and was recognized by his neighbor who voted for Trump. So he was right. There was fraud. It was just not done by the people he was claiming it was done by.
And that's what we need to do, guys. We need to stop listening to Facebook, listening to, all of these posts that aren't telling you the truth. Do your research. Just like I did with that Facebook post today. The article didn't even have the whole thing. I went online and I researched the case and I went in there and I started looking at the facts. But how many people aren't swayed by a comment like that? The other day someone shared a video with me, and the video that they shared, no joke, said Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter says they're going to kill little girls. And I'm like, what? And I watched the video. And mind you, I am going to say this. I don't bite my tongue. I don't agree with the fact that they even spoke to the girls because they weren't adults. They were like middle school, high school age. They were minors. But the Black Lives Matter were having a protest, and these cheerleaders walked by, and all the Black Lives Matter representative said was, ladies, can you all wear something black while you're performing for us to show that you support us? While Black mothers are burying their daughters, your white privilege has allowed you to go to cheer camp and attend these events. So could you please wear something black to support us? That's all she said. And that is turned into Black Lives Matter claim, says they're going to kill little girls. Like, y'all got to do your research. Y'all got to make sure that you're not being fooled by people that have ill will and ill intent.
I mean, and it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Like you said, these platforms aren't going to be 100%. They're going to be kind of maybe it's this, and it's up to you to how you decipher it. No, like he says, be your own person, use your own mind, and think for yourself. Everyone keeps running around here talking about, oh, we're not sheep. Well, bad. You're all sheep. You're not able to think for yourself. You're quick to pick up a phone and look on Twitter, rather quicker than you are to pick up a book. Pick up a book and understand something, because a lot of times that I tell people things that's been throughout history, I've done my own research about them. I've read them in books, but I have also done my own research. That's why I know how Santa Anna was captured. I did my research. It's written in history. You can't rewrite that. It's there, black and white. So do your own research. Like Odie says, you don't have to listen to us. You can do your own research. Find out for yourself. Find out your own truth. Do it on your own, but don't do it just because you saw it on Twitter. Don't do it because some person that you follow on Twitter said, oh, this is what it is. Because it's 9 times out of 10, they don't even know what's going on half the time. 9 times out of 10, they're not 100% certain of what's going on. So be your own person and think for yourself. Or you can be like the grand followers of Fox News, who they're simply saying was, well, they should have used common sense and known that the stuff that we were reporting was essentially just BS. Yep. They're turning everything that they've said and fed to these people for months. Fed it every single day like clockwork for months. Then January 6th happens and they're like, oh, that's not bad. Nothing happened. Whatever. Well, President Trump, he did call the National Guard. I mean, and then you downplay that. Then Dominion is starting to come after you. Now you're like, oh, we were just reporting it because, the president was saying it and somebody had to report it. What journalist does not do their research before they get on the air and report something?
No. I'm glad you said that, because you know how bad I am with names. I can't remember his name. The white-haired guy from Fox News. I think is it Spicer? No, I can't remember his name. But one of them actually said, "Oh, this isn't news. This is for entertainment. This isn't real news." Again, using the same line. No reasonable person would consider this news. Guys, it's not news. It's entertainment. They're not giving you real news. News is facts, not opinions. If they're telling you, well, I think, that's an opinion. That's not the news.
Yeah.
So yes, please don't just listen to Fox. Don't just go to, I'll say it this way. I grew up Christian. I still consider myself mainly Christian, but I didn't ever want to hate anybody for anything else. So growing up, I went in and I researched other religions. I researched the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints religion. I researched Jehovah's Witness religion. I researched Buddhism. I love Buddhism. I've said for years, if I wasn't born Christian, the other religion I would have loved to practice would have been Buddhism. But the reason I did that was because I wanted to understand the people. You can't just hate for the sake of hating. You know, the one thing that I found from each one of those religions, they all call for love. It's the one constant. And if you're hating for the sake of hating, you're no better than Fox News reporters. Don't just listen to one side. It doesn't matter if your family has been Republican for years. It doesn't matter if your family's been Democrat for years. It doesn't matter what is what. Make your own decisions by doing the research. Mike, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I know that this was something that we wanted to talk about, COVID vaccines.
Yeah. With that, I'll say this. Like we were previously saying, do your own research. Just as long as you know what you're putting into your body, you're willing to take that risk, I mean, it's on you. Just as long as we are all understanding that social distancing and masking still needs to take place. Just because you got the vaccine or you're whatever, your state's open, that's fine. That's fine. Here in Texas, we're open, but I still, when I'm at work, I wear my mask. When I go to HEB, I wear my mask. Well, those of you that don't know what HEB is, it's like the Publix of Texas. And
It's who really runs Texas.
Yeah, it really does. Like HEB could probably run for governor. But I still wear my mask. I mean, no one within my family goes out without a mask. We make sure of that. And we do that for two reasons. One, we're in a category that is disproportionately affected by this virus. Two, we are understanding that just because vaccines are out doesn't mean that COVID is like, oh, you guys got vaccines, we're going to go pack it up and go somewhere else. No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. And the fact that 400,000 people died under the previous administration is just sickening to me. And it could have all been prevented. And simply just coming to the understanding of, I mean, sitting in the house can get boring. I know. I get tired of watching the same. Look, my daughter will sit there and she will watch Wally all day long. I get tired of Wally. I can only imagine what it would have been like stuck in a house for 6 months watching Wally every day. But you know what? If it came down to it, where me staying in the house saved the lives of 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 400,000 people, I will do it. Because to me, a life is more important. And like Odie said, there is no such thing as free freedom. Freedom is not free. Freedom always has a cost, and it's going to continue to cost. And now it's costing us big, and it's going to cost us more, all because we were too greedy. We could have easily stayed home, stayed separate, stayed safe. And I'm not saying it would have been over, but we could have had a better handle on it. And now things are so far out of control, things are so spiraled out of control and so down that now we're basically fighting to stay afloat in this country. Unemployment's going up, homelessness is starting to go up. I mean, people's lives have been ruined all because of one decision, the decision to not shut this thing down. That could have saved a lot of lives. And the fact that that wasn't on the top of the agenda is just, I don't understand. Like, I really don't. When does the life of a person become the top priority in this country?
Before I say my last thoughts, it was Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity was the one that said that he's not a reporter, he's an entertainer. But guys, when it comes to COVID, I mean, I unfortunately, it has affected my family. My wife's side of the family has lost 5 family members due to COVID. Um, Even though it was not someone related to me by blood, you know, the way that I describe it is kind of like survivor's guilt. I see my wife and her family having to go through all of that, and it breaks my heart. Even now, you might see me getting emotional because of it, because it hurts to see what they're going through and to know that it could have been prevented. Um, Remember that the vaccine takes care of you, not others. That's why it's still important to wear masks. Again, I really don't like this guy, and I don't care that he's a Republican. I just don't like the guy. Ted Cruz, genius that he is, says, "Well, I've already been vaccinated. I don't need to wear a mask." That shows his true colors. He doesn't care about others. I've been vaccinated. I still wear my mask wherever I go, regardless. Why? Because the vaccine takes care of me, not others. And yes, we want you to make your own decision, but especially, I'm looking out for the white people out there. It's been shown that white people are the ones that aren't taking the vaccine because they don't trust it. Uh, I thought it was going to be the minorities, and no, it's not. It's the white people. White people look into the vaccine. You have different options. There's the Pfizer, there's Moderna, there's the Johnson and Johnson. Read about them. Read, like Mr. Mike said, it's okay to be distrusting of it. But if you're going to distrust it and you're going to make the decision of not to take it, then continue wearing your masks. You might, even now, I've still heard, even today, someone had the nerve to tell me, "Well, I'm sorry that your family's lost 5 people, but it wasn't COVID because COVID is fake." It's not fake, guys. It really isn't. Um, I never thought in my lifetime I would see the United States have to open mass graves because people were dying of a disease. I never thought that it would take a month for my wife and her family to get, a relative back because so many people are dead that they're just throwing them in a 18-wheeler freezer. And yet that happened because our government and the administration in charge weren't capable of preventing it.
Absolutely. And like Odie said, I mean, make your own choice. I mean, he's gotten it. I choose not to get it for my own personal reasons. And look, we have our differences on that, and that's okay. I still don't feel any differently about him. Then I mean, hey, he made a decision based off of his knowledge of what he'd understood and what he researched on. I'm not taking it for the same reasons. I mean, it is what it is. But I still am taking the precautions of protecting not only myself but other people by wearing my mask. So, until the day comes that I do get a vaccine, I'm going to continue to wear my mask because it's not about me. It's not about me. I want to keep Odie from having to have another funeral for his family. If I can do that by wearing my mask, people, let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do what it takes to continue to make our society a better place by just doing something as simple as wearing a mask. It's not difficult. If you're not going to wear a mask, stay away from people. Distance yourself. Stay away. Like, be respectful of people's like personal like opinions. Like, it's fine. Like, I choose not to. I choose to wear my mask. That's fine. But if I see someone who is not wearing a mask, I'm going to stay away, and it's going to be from my personal opinion and my personal views. It's not to say that I don't like you as a person. It doesn't say that I don't like you as a person. It's just saying that for my own safety and your safety, that I would rather do that because I care about you, despite your opinion, despite your views on it. I respect you enough to be like, I would rather keep our distance just in case. Because you know what, this thing, you can have it and not know it. You know what I mean? Like I had it in January. And the only thing that happened to me was I couldn't taste or smell anything for 10 days. You know, and my fiance, she was in bed and she had to end up being hospitalized. So it affects everyone differently. So I mean, we went through that. We survived it, and it's not fun. It's not. I did not like seeing her the way she was. And when I have to get up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and rush her to the hospital because she's having a hard time breathing, that's scary. So people, let's do what we have to do to maintain and ensure that people who can't fight for themselves are fought for by just simply either keeping your distance or wearing a mask. It's not hard. Pick or choose. If you're not going to wear a mask, keep distance. If you're going to wear a mask, cool. We can come together with that. But we have to make a decision. Um, Last thing I want to say before we get out of here tonight. The George Floyd trial, I'm sorry, Derek Chauvin trial is due to start, I believe, this Monday. I'm going to include in the description below where the medical examiner has biological and physical proof of what this man did, what these men did to George Floyd. I mean, take a look at it, watch it for yourself. Please watch the entire thing. He does give a lot of good information, and that's why I chose that one. There will be several links on it. There will be links on the Sidney Powell rebuttal of her speech from this week. I'm going to include that in the link below, and I'm also going to include the link where we have seen a rise in homelessness throughout the state of Texas here, and I'm pretty sure I've looked, there's at least 11 states where homelessness has increased within the last year.
Yep. Yeah, no,
So,
definite. Really quick to go back on your point, guys. This trial is really, really important. It might not seem like it is, but it is. My generation, the trial that defined my generation was the OJ trial.
Hmm.
This trial is very important for a completely different reason. The beautiful thing about nowadays, the beautiful thing about today, is we have all this proof. We have every single person can go in there and review the proof that's there. We say innocent until proven guilty, but we also need to make sure that we look at the facts and look at everything. So hopefully y'all pay attention to it. We are in a way seeing history in the making. Hopefully this is where it finally turns around and we finally get justice.
Absolutely. And, like he was saying, innocent until proven guilty. But, we all know in this country, for some people, it's the complete opposite. Um, let's not forget that this past week was the anniversary for the death of Mike Ramos. Let's continue to, remember him and his family because he should still be here as well. Um, let's talk about real quick how, like Odie said earlier, that the Asian population, they're still under attack. We definitely need to make sure that we ensure their safety in any way possible. Whatever you can do, whatever donations you can give to any of the charities out there. I mean, I've donated some myself. I'm not bragging or anything, but it's just whatever you can do to try to help these communities. Let's do something because waiting for legislation to pass isn't going to do it. Let's use our voices. Let's get on the phones with our congressmen, senators. Let's do what we have to do to ensure that everyone has an ability to live their life without being afraid to live and go outside and do what you need to do on a daily basis. No one should be afraid to go to a supermarket and be afraid of being shot up by somebody coming in. No one should be afraid to be walking down the street and be attacked because of the color of their skin or their ethnic origin. This is something that we really honestly need to stay on top of. We need to continue to use our voices and stay on top of our elected officials, the people who are supposed to be representing us. We need to stay on top of them to make sure that they represent us. And right now, we need representation in this area. So until next time, everybody. One more thing. Due to some scheduling, the next week's episode might not air until Sunday evening, Monday next week. We do apologize for that, but like we said, we do have lives as well. We both are very hardworking men. We have families, but we will do our best to make sure that we have dialogue like this going forward. We're going to include history, but at the same time, we're going to stay up on current events to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on, not just here in the state of Texas, but all over the country. We're going to make sure that everything is known throughout the country, and make that way we can all open up the dialogue together. And I mean, we definitely need to come together. That's one thing. That's just remember that together we are unanimous. We can do anything. We made that point in November. We can do it again. And all it takes is for all of us to come together in unity. And just remember, just because you don't agree with something somebody says doesn't make them your enemy. It just makes it a debate. So until next time, be good to each other, love each other, make good choices, don't come back to the Rona, and that always, united we stand.